Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's session of English Wednesdays. This is Romina from Macmillan Education, and today I am here with Roy Norris.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
Hello, welcome, Roy. And Roy today will be speaking about how to build the students' confidence for the very famous exam B2 First. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Roy, for being here today and to thank Mondadori Education for organizing these events. And I'd also like to remind you guys that you will have access to your attestati on www.mondadorieducation.it/attestati within a working week from today. Also, I suppose you all know Roy Norris. He's a very well-known teacher, trainer, and author. And he's also the author of series like Straight to First and Ready for First. And by the way, this year, a new version of Ready for First, a new edition has come out, the 4th edition. And I suppose there's nothing left to say from my side. So over to you, Roy, and everybody enjoy the session. Thank you.
Thanks, Romina. Right. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm talking to you from my flat in Madrid, where it's very sunny. And there it is. There's a title, Building Students' Confidence for the B2 First. So what I'm going to do is look at activities for making for the skills and strategies needed for the exam to give students that confidence for when they take the exam. Of course, students have been nervous when they take the exam, but it's activities designed to prepare them for the B2 First. I'll be using some material from the new edition of Ready for B2 First. There is a handout. The handout should be available straight after the session on the website there for you to use. Some of the activities are from the book, and some of the activities are completely new and not in any book. Okay, but I'll tell you as we go along what activities there are. I'm going to look at each of the papers. First up is listening, and really for me the best thing for building students' confidence for the listening paper is to make them aware of distractors and how distractors work. So what I'm going to focus on for the first part is the area of distractors. And what I have here, this is in the handout. It's going to be in the handout you'll get later. It's an activity for making them aware of this. And it's also in Ready for B2 First. Here you have a question from listening part 1. You hear a man talking to a friend about a TV series he is watching. The man is impressed with which? A, B, C, the soundtrack, the acting, the plot. Well, the answer, and students have this, is the plot. And you can see there the beginning of the script. Enjoying the new series? Well, yeah, it's okay. The writers have done a great job with the storyline for plot. It draws you in, makes you want to keep watching. So that's the answer comes right at the beginning, and that in fact is the part of the challenge for students, is that it comes at the beginning when they're not necessarily switched on and ready for the answer. So that's the difficulty there. The other two possible answers, well, the acting is, well, yeah, it's a distractor there. Let's have a look at the script. It's a shame about the actual script, though. I mean, the actors do their best with their lines. There's something that sounds positive, doesn't it? Do their best. Best is a positive word. So it sounds as though the man might be impressed with that. But straight after that comes the word but. Okay, there's a contrast there. The actors do their best with the lines, but the positive followed by a negative. They all sound very unnatural. So that's not the answer. And nor is the soundtrack. People are saying good things about the music. They're another positive thing, good things about the music. But I really don't understand why they've used modern songs in his series set in the 1920s. So he's not impressed with that. This word but is key here. It's not the only word used for creating distractors, of course, but there is some kind of contrast involved here. It takes students or candidates one way, a positive thought, and then takes them away from that using this word but or some kind of contrast, either stated or implied. And this is a key facet of distraction. And to make students aware of this feature, here's a little activity which is going to be in your handout, but it's not in any book. These are some sentence beginnings. Now, I've chosen 5 sentence beginnings. I'm going to give you the possibility to write your own sentence beginnings with other language, but the language here is important, which I'll focus on a bit later. He tried to get tickets for the afternoon show, but now you can put students into pairs, small groups, and they can complete each sentence, and then when they've done that, they can compare it with you or compare it with other students to see what they've got there. He tried to get tickets for the afternoon show, but, well, the obvious answer there is something like they were all sold out. There's no one correct answer, okay? It's important to understand there's no one correct answer, just this one. Perhaps most people are going to be writing that. The next one, I'd love to see you at the weekend, but here's my answer. I've got 3 exams on Monday, but there are millions of different excuses you could choose for not seeing somebody at the weekend. But you can see what we're doing here. The beginning of the sentence, I'd love to see you at the weekend. Does the speaker see the person at the weekend? It looks like he's going to, but no, he doesn't. And the first one, he tried to get tickets for the afternoon show. Did he get tickets? Yeah, seems to, but no, they were all sold out. She used to be an English teacher, but now you can change that one if you want to. I'll put my answer here straight away. She wrote a book about a boy wizard, J.K. Rowling, if you're in any doubt. Okay, that's my answer. Students can write their own one. And as I say, you can substitute these sentence beginnings if you don't like them. Normally, I'd cycle there, but that's not really possible with a broken leg. At first, I thought the series was a bit slow, but it got better after the 2nd episode. Yeah, so in that last one, for example, you can imagine that in a listening, and one of the prompts being he thought or she thought the series was slow. Well, it seems like it might be that, but this language at first, but, and then one before, normally, but, she used to be, but, okay? So as I say, they can do that in pairs, compare them with other students. They can even read out the second part of the sentence, and the other pair of students can tell them which is the sentence beginning. But the main aim of this is to make them aware of how distractors are built in. And when I've been writing recently, Ready for B2 First, I've been piloting material with students. And when you go in on the first, when I got in on the first day to a class, meeting them for the first time, they don't know about distractors. You do a listening and they're not ready for it. But after a couple of weeks, once you've introduced them to the whole concept of distraction, they know what to expect and they're ready for it. And they're at the beginning of the course, they're kind of writing the wrong answers, and then you see them after a couple of weeks after doing some work on distractors with their pen ready to write, but they're just waiting a little bit more to hear if there's a trick to it or some kind of contrast like this. This is also in the handout. This is if you want to write different sentences, is to show you the kind of language that's used in some distractors. This doesn't explain all distraction, but it's a big part of it. This idea of desire, expectation versus reality. Wanted to, would like to, intended to, expect, thought, but. Yeah. Earlier versus later, we've already seen used to, normally, at first, but. And then conditionals. There's a whole part of Ready for B2 First devoted to how conditionals can be worked into or are worked in to create distractors. I'd probably accept the job if it wasn't so badly paid, but I didn't accept the job. Yeah, but getting in that accepting the job in the language there could lead listeners to think that the person did. And then modal verbs. You should have told him, but you didn't. But is implied, and they could be in the past, but I don't think so. For example, yeah, and so on and so forth. So modal verbs, conditionals, and that language at the beginning there is often used. There's another aspect of, before I leave the topic of distractors, which is worth talking about. In listening part 1 now, there are a lot of questions. Very frequently, there are questions, what do the speakers agree about? In this one here, you hear 2 people talking about the twice weekly fitness class they both attend. What do they agree about it? It's frequent. It's usually in every listening part 1 now. It didn't used to be several years ago, but now it's there. Sometimes there are 2 questions, and very often, well, not often, but sometimes three. I've seen as many as 3 agreeing questions, and that has its own carries its own type of distraction here. So this is in your handouts, also in Ready for B2 First, and you can try. I'm just going to show you one example. What I do is, or what you can do is show them this. There's a bit of script for option A. What do they agree? There is not much variety. The parts in bold stand out. That's what they're going to hear. Hardly any variety in the classes. And the woman says, yeah. So they're agreeing. But no, they're not, because in that script, it was last year was so boring. There was hardly any variety. And the woman is saying, yeah, this new teacher's a real improvement. Every lesson is different. So they don't agree that there's not much variety. They agree there wasn't variety before, but not now. That's not what they're agreeing to. So that's how distractor is worked in there. So in the handout, you'll see for each of those different options, more script, and students have to say why that answer is not, each option is not correct. Okay. Right, another aspect of listening. Here is an example of a part 3 multiple matching from the handout, in fact. And in this, if you're not sure, in part 3 there are 5 speakers who each speak for about 30 seconds about a topic. In this particular case, it's what makes the speaker happy, or what is the speaker's definition of happiness. I can't remember exactly the wording. This is one of the options here with the relevant script. Happiness is a short escape from everyday routine. And what you'll see in the script is that short escape and everyday routine are understandably, naturally expressed in different ways. So let's have a look at that. Speaker 1 says, what is happiness? From an early age, happiness for me is sitting in a boat in the middle of a lake on a summer's day and doing some serious fishing all alone, just me and my thoughts. No stress. Get away from it all for an hour or so. There's the short escape. And if you're thinking, well, perhaps an hour could be quite long, just later in the script, you can see in red that brief moment of happiness. So the speaker is saying it's a short escape, and that's enough for that answer there. An everyday routine, the person says, then when it's all over, it's back to normal life. Normal life, everyday routine. So that's how that option D is expressed within the script. It's expressed with different words. Actually, before we go on, I don't fish myself. Maybe some of you go fishing, but it seems to me that if you're just going to go on a boat in the middle of a lake for 1 hour to do some fishing, that could be quite stressful after all the preparations you have to make, and getting your fishing lines ready, getting the boat ready, going out to the middle of the lake, and so on and so forth. Anyway, we have to suspend disbelief here because for this person, she says no stress. Okay, now what's the point? Well, the point is, this is in the handout, the handbook, the Cambridge Assessment Handbook. Students could practice doing the exercise with the tape script so that they can see the kind of matching required. That's what we've just done. Personally, I think it's better to do the listening first and then afterwards look at the tape script, but that's up to you. Other relevant exercises would be any which practice saying the same thing in a different way. Now, this is something which is key to B2 first exam, saying the same thing in a different way, paraphrasing. It is such an important sub-skill. It's there, it's here in the listening, it's in the reading, as we'll see a bit later. In the writing, we expect students to have a variety of expressions to say the same thing in different ways. We don't want them to repeat the same language within their writing. In the use of English, of course, it's tested in transformations, and also in speaking. Students are encouraged in the handbook, the Cambridge Handbook, to paraphrase if they don't know a word. When they get to proficiency, paraphrasing is not acceptable, but when they're at first, paraphrasing is a very acceptable sub-skill. So paraphrasing is extremely important to the B2 first. So what I'm going to show you now is an activity which is in the Ready for B2 First. You can do it with whatever book you're using. If you're not using that, that's fine. For a part 3 listening, Now, where the arrow is in the what to expect in the exam box, I've said you will not hear exactly the same words as those in sentences A to H. We've just seen that, a short escape from everyday routine. Before you listen, consider at least one alternative way of expressing the general idea contained in each sentence. So if we look at A, I tend to wear the same clothes all the time. There's an example back in the box there. I feel really comfortable in a white shirt and jeans, and that's what I wear nearly every day. Everything else seems to stay in the wardrobe. Okay, so that's expressing that in a different way. Then students will do this together in pairs, groups, whatever, working on those to think of alternative ways of saying those. How might it be expressed? So B, I don't really care what clothes I wear. Well, normally, if I was there in Italy talking to you face to face, I'd be asking you to give me suggestions. I can't see the chat box, but I'm sure you've got lots of different ways of saying that or expressing that. I don't really care. Could be it doesn't matter. It's not important. I'm not worried about what I put on. I just get the first thing out of the drawer and put it on, and so on, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm aware. Of course, I'm aware that in the exam, students have only 30 seconds to read the 8 options. So they don't have time to do this kind of do this paraphrasing for every sentence there. But this is getting them into the mindset to prepare them, as I said before, for once they're prepared for what happens in the exam, they're much more confident when they do it, and they'll know what to expect, which is what it's about. So it's getting them into the mindset. And at least they can start in the exam, start to think along those lines. Plus, of course, it's very, very good practice at paraphrasing. And if you agree with what I said before, it's such an important sub-skill for all parts of the exam. So it's far from time wasted. It's time extremely well spent to do something like this. Not every time you do a part 3 listening, maybe, but certainly in the early stages, get them thinking along these lines. Now, this is the related to this. This is from the teacher's book of Ready for B2 First. If you're interested in that, we've now got this format. I hope you can see that. I can't see myself, so I can only see the screen of the presentation. But what I'm showing you there is it's a ring binder for the teacher's book, which enables us to have on the right-hand side, the right-hand page. You have the listening, you have the answers written in. You've got a vocabulary exercise with the answers written in on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side, in this case, you have teacher's notes and the scripts there with the relevant part of those scripts highlighted. So depends on, sometimes the page from the student's book is on the left, sometimes it's on the right, but it's always there with the answers in, already written in, and with any help necessary from the readings or the listenings to help you to build your confidence when you're with your students, because that's also extremely important. Your confidence will wash off onto the students as well. Let's go in a little bit and focus on that script there, and there you can see speaker 2. I'm not the kind of person who spends time worrying about what to put on in the morning. I said, this doesn't matter, I don't care, I don't mind, I don't worry. I just throw on the first thing I find in my wardrobe, and that's it. Okay, so there you have the answers there straight away, and that's how language is rephrased in these listening activities. Okay, right, reading. Going on to reading now. A couple of things about reading. Well, this paraphrasing idea, let's just pursue that a little bit more. Here's a multiple matching exercise on a new text from Ready for B2 First about going vegan. A lot of younger people are now interested in becoming vegetarian, and some even going vegan. And here you have Jack and Sarah, just 2 of those of the 5 texts that are in that multiple matching reading. And we'll look at Jack there. This is what Jack says for one of his for one of the answers. He says, now that I'm vegan, I'm very much aware of the extra effort involved for non-vegans who invite me for a meal. I always offer to take a dessert, and the other dinner guests are invariably amazed at how delicious it is. And the answer that this matches up to is people are always surprised. People are invariably amazed as it says in the text, by how tasty vegan food can be and how delicious it is. So there again is this matchup of language expressed in a different way. It's not only paraphrasing. Here's Sarah. She says, my dad had a problem. He kept sending me articles warning of the pitfalls of a plant-based diet. I tried to put his mind at rest, which in the option, the question is, my attempts to reassure. I tried to put his mind at rest. There's a clear rephrasing, a paraphrasing. But the next part is more summary. Yeah, by telling him I was taking supplements, but that just served to reinforce his idea I wasn't eating properly. It had the opposite effect. So I'm not saying it's always paraphrasing, but it is certainly a large part of it. Now, and there in the teacher's book is the relevant parts underlined for you with the question next to it, showing you where the answers are. Now, what I'm suggesting here is that you could use that language of paraphrasing, this feature of paraphrasing from listenings, from readings, and use that for students to create vocabulary records. Because there's, well, for two reasons. Firstly, there's a lot of useful language in these readings and listenings, and also because it gives this practice in paraphrasing and creates a record of it, because it's such a big feature in the exam. So there you've got on the left is the part from the actual reading text. I received a great deal of advice, and on the right I got loads of useful tips. Sorry, the one on the left is the question. On the right is the part from the text. The next one, my attempts to reassure him. I tried to put his mind at rest. I regret not having become a vegan before. I wish I'd done it ages ago, and so on and so forth. So when you're doing readings like multiple matching readings, and there is this paraphrasing in there, and you've got it in your teacher's book, it's nicely underlined. It's a small step to get students to record this in their vocabulary notebooks. And notice how I've done it left-hand side, right-hand side, not one above the other. Why? Well, because then students can look at it, they can cover up the right-hand side with a book, with a piece of paper, with their hand, and try and remember the paraphrase for that piece of language. And then they can do the other way. They can put their hand over the left-hand side and do it like that. I do this. I'm at the moment going back to studying German. I used to be, many years ago, 35 years ago, I was a German teacher in a secondary school in England, French and German. And I'm now going back to studying German, and what I'm doing is doing a lot of vocabulary. I can show you actually. It'll take time, so I won't do it. But I've got my vocabulary book here. My German vocabulary book is here. There it is, and it's got a lot of pages which are done like this. So I'm speaking from experience. It's very, very useful way of dealing with some very, very good vocabulary, and also this idea of paraphrasing, killing two birds with one stone. You won't have time to do it all the time. I'm aware of that. This is time consuming. But if you just give 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes, or get them to do it for homework to set their vocabulary record out from based on the reading or listening that they've been doing. Also with paraphrasing, what I'm going to show you here is an exercise that's in Ready for B2 First. It's a multiple choice exercise. It's showing 3 different types of holiday. I'm going to focus in on this one here, and I'll show you how I relate it to paraphrasing in a second. Just a sec. Firstly, students will do the exercise. Yeah, they'll choose the correct alternative, and you'll correct it with them. Whether you're looking for a pet-friendly cottage in the countryside or a city centre flat with disabled facilities, the answer. Yeah, we have something to suit your requirements. Search our extensive database for the perfect accommodation, a variety of popular holiday destinations, and so on. Yeah? Now, when you've done it, checked it, talked about it, then you can incorporate, again, it's just a small step, incorporate some work on paraphrasing. Ask them to paraphrase, or with your help, some of those expressions. So, for example, with disabled facilities, a flat which is equipped or for people with disabilities, for example. or to suit your requirements, something which is perfect for your needs or perfect for what you want. Popular holiday destinations, places where many tourists go on holiday. And you're incorporating a little bit of work. It doesn't have to be the whole. Notice there are 15 questions. This is just the last 5. You don't have to do it for the whole thing, but you can do a little bit of work on paraphrasing to build up their confidence in this very important skill. It doesn't have to be all the time. Just this is a way you can incorporate it. And then into your vocabulary record, once again, on the left, a flat with disabled facilities, a flat which is equipped for people with disabilities. We have something, etc., and so on and so forth. Okay. And then afterwards, it's a very small step later to doing revision work on this. And what I've done here is reproduce that exercise. It's time consuming for the teacher. You write it out again with gaps of one word, and students have to put in the correct word. So a revision activity the next lesson, a week after, and you've got for each one you have the paraphrase there afterwards in bracket as well, just to reinforce that idea. And there are your answers there: disabled facilities, suit your requirements, and so on. It's time consuming to prepare. It takes very little classroom time, which is good, because you want to be moving on to other things, and you have it for future years of teaching. Okay. So I'm aware it takes time, but it's time well spent, and it helps to build students' confidence. Revision, paraphrasing. And then you can also put this language into the format of transformations, which is directly relevant to the use of English paper, of course, or the use of, sorry, I always say the use of English paper. It's the reading and use of English paper, but the use of English section of the reading and use of English paper. There, the property is fully equipped with bed linen. This is straight from that exercise we've just done there. Not difficult to write these transformations when you're dealing with paraphrasing all the time. I tried to reassure him. I tried to put his mind at rest. That's some of the language we've been looking at. So recording it and then revising it later. Another feature of reading, before I leave reading, is dealing with unknown vocabulary. Now, we're talking here about building students' confidence. Sometimes students' confidence can be shaken when they come across a lot of vocabulary they don't know in a reading text. And the advice from the handbook from Cambridge is students should develop strategies for operating independently of reference books by, for example, guessing the meaning of unknown words from the context. As of course, they're not permitted to take dictionaries into the exam. Yeah, and it's a skill, it's a strategy that's necessary. And if it's developed, they'll go into the exam more confident about how to deal with unknown vocabulary. It's not just guessing the meaning. Sometimes it's ignoring the unknown vocabulary and being aware that it's just not important. Actually, I've just remembered when my daughters are both teenagers now, but when they were very little, they were learning Spanish and English at the same time, English for me, and we did a lot of reading, and I was always amazed at how incredibly well they just ignored words which didn't matter to the text they were reading. They just untroubled by unknown words. They weren't stopping every minute going, "Dad, what does this mean? What's that? What's this?" Sometimes they did it, and when they did it, it was because it was a word that really was important. But in other words, they just didn't know what it meant. They got the global meaning of the text. They were very good. I think, unfortunately, the older you get, the more insecure you become, and the more you want to grab onto the meaning of everything. So we can learn a lot from young children, I think, in that respect. So this is just to show you the kind of vocabulary that you can get in some of these readings. This is a reading taken from, vocabulary taken from a reading which is in the handbook, one of the handbooks, not sure if it's for schools or for the other one. And crouches, creeps, hop off, stride, all these verbs of movement. I wouldn't expect B2 students to know each of those and to be able to use them. Perhaps they can work out that it's movement. That's enough. really is enough. A gale, a howling wind, dumping rain, drifting. These words related to weather. Again, most of these words I wouldn't expect them to know. Herding the flock of sheep, tapping their boots, a glowing fire. This is all in the same multiple choice reading text. So if students are not prepared, haven't been prepared beforehand how to deal with this, they can lose confidence. They can think they don't understand anything. I don't understand anything, they might say. So what I'm going to show you here is something which is in Ready for B2 First. You can do this with other texts as well, but this is from the Ready for Reading section in the new 4th edition. This is a text that I wrote about a trip that my family and I did 4 years ago in 2017, when we, back in those days when we could travel, remember that? We went to Scotland, and we hired or rented, whatever you say, the services of a guide, a wildlife guide, for a half-day trip. And the promise was, well, the promise, no, the hope was that we could see some of those animals there. The seals, the otters, the deer, the golden eagle, and the red squirrel, the big five, as they're called in Scotland. Not the big five in Africa, but in Scotland, those are the big five. So this text is about that. And before students do the multiple choice exercise, they're given a chance to look at some words from context. Now this is in the text, I'm not sure if you can see that. Well, you can see some words in bold there, but these are not those words. These words come from this paragraph here. And students are asked to look at find these words here, and with some help, there's a bit of help here to work out the meaning of the words that are in the text. Now, what I've done for you, just to show you another little technique you can do to vary this, is to actually take the word out. Because if they don't understand the word, it doesn't matter what word you put in there. It can be a nonsense word, or it can be no word at all, as long as they know there's a word there. But it's to show you how you can guess more or less what the meaning is. So if you look here, on the hour, a minibus with the words Wild West Safaris on its side pulls into the car park. So this is the arrival of Ian. That's the guide we hired, Ian McLeod. And so what word could go in the gap? Well, if you look at that, you can see it's probably the words Wild West Safaris on its side, probably written. And if it's written, it's a word we know, of course. So if it's a word we don't know, what word could be another word for written? Probably it's going to be in big letters, and the word actually in the text is emblazoned. And of course, you wouldn't expect your students to understand that, but they will know that it means written in some way. The exact meaning is not that important. And out steps Ian, from ear to ear. Now, what do you do from ear to ear? And if you look at the next sentence, it's a big clue. It's difficult not to warm to his cheerful, friendly manner. So if you've got a cheerful, friendly manner, you're not going to be like this. You're going to be like this. You're going to be smiling from ear to ear. So another word for smiling, which is used there instead of smiling, beaming. That's the word there. I'm not asking them to guess the words. Hope you're not misunderstanding this. My point in doing this is to show you that it doesn't matter what the word is there, you can guess from context more or less its meaning. And then the actual text they've got, these words are written in there. We all seem to, so he's got a cheerful, friendly manner, and we all seem to him from the start. We all seem to hate him? No, probably not. It's the opposite, isn't it? So like him, something like that. And this is the language used in the text. Hit it off with him. We're not going to be hitting him, which one might first think when they see the word hit. Oh, I understand hit. We're going to be hitting him, but he's got a cheerful, friendly manner. Why would you do that? No, it's the opposite. And it's figurative meaning of this phrasal verb. And then this is particularly reassuring since no one else has today's safari. It's just the five of us in the 9-seater minibus. Well, I've got two daughters, my wife, myself, and Ian McLeod. I state that at the beginning of the text. So what could that word be? Well, we just, since no one else has decided to come on, or in this case, signed up for today's safari. Yeah. So words can be guessed. The meaning can be guessed from context, and this exercise, this activity from Ready for B2 First is designed to give students confidence in that skill, to show them they can guess those words the meaning of those words from context. There they are, actually in the text. And there is Ian McLeod's van with the words Wild West emblazoned. Well, not massively, it's not massive, but I guess, again, it's kind of being a bit economical with the truth there. They are pretty big letters, though. And there is the man himself, Ian McLeod, our guide for the day. And we did actually see most of those animals. We saw the seals, we saw a deer, we saw an otter. We saw an otter at the end of the trip. Red squirrels we weren't bothered with because we see those in Spain all the time. And I've been in contact with Ian McLeod recently. Lovely man. There he is, beaming from ear to ear in his native Scotland. And I've sent him a copy of the book to thank him for his work. Now, also, I said at the beginning of this section that you can guess meaning of words from context. You can also learn to ignore them sometimes. And I want to show you that those words which are complex words, which students wouldn't be able to get, wouldn't know what they were, can either be guessed or ignored because they're not the kind of words that are tested. Here is an extract from the handbook. As we drew closer, it doesn't matter, I'm giving you no context at all, it's just here's a little bit, but you don't need a lot of context. As we drew closer, he became clearer. He was actually a young man rather than a boy. Although he was on the small side, he wasn't as I'd first thought. Probably what we're going to have is a word there which is similar to the small, and the word in fact is slight. Possibly students wouldn't know that, and as we'll see, it doesn't actually really matter. He wasn't exactly muscular, but he wasn't either. So it's the opposite there of muscular. And the word that's used in the text is weedy looking. Now, it'd be very unfair if students' understanding of those words was tested in a question. And in fact, as you'll see, they are not, because the question relevant to this part of the text is, what do we learn about Catherine's reactions to the boy? She realized her first impression of him was inaccurate. And that relates to that part of the text. He wasn't as I'd first thought. It doesn't matter what that word is. It could be anything, big, small, slight, any word you could care to imagine. The answer is she realized her first impression of him was inaccurate. So it's sifting through all that information to extract the main meaning. And the main meaning was her first impression was inaccurate. We don't need to understand those tricky words to answer the questions. So we're hoping we can give students that confidence that, for example, my daughters had when they were much, much younger, when they were reading, to guess or to ignore the words they come across. Okay. Use of English. I'm looking at time as well. I'm going to move on swiftly. Use of English, just a couple of things to say about use of English. Firstly, in Ready for BT1st, those of you who use the 3rd edition and know the book, we've changed the format. The language focus in the unit, we've made a lot less dense. And I think when there's a lot of dense information, it can be off-putting for students. And on this theme of confidence, it can cause them to lose confidence. So we've put it in single column, not small type, not small font. We've introduced the topic here, for example, in Unit 3 of comparisons. There's some information here. And when you get, I hope you can see my cursor. When you get to where about my cursor is, they're having done some introductory work. They check their answers in the back and do further exercises before coming back to do the speaking activities, which are at the end of the section there. So it's a lot less dense there. And at the grammar reference set pages, what we have there is a different format. We now have, for example, here on the left, the grammar explanation. Yes, it's not as dense as it used to be, that's for sure. There's a lot of information there, but it's not as dense. And on the right-hand side are those extra activities for more detailed work on comparisons. And while students are doing that, they can look at the grammar on the left to help them do those exercises on the right for their confidence. Yeah. So we've set it out, made it a lot less dense in the body of the unit, and also set it out like this in the grammar reference so that the further exercises are next to the explanations. Word formation, another aspect of use of English, building confidence. Well, in the book, as always, what I've got is a systematic approach to word formation. So you have here, for example, in Unit 3, work on nouns. Then in Unit 4, work on participle adjectives. And then in Unit 9, there's work on adverbs. And there are other units working on adjectives and working on nouns as well, and affixes. So there's a systematic approach to word formation. And as you can see there, hopefully it's set out in single column, a lot better distributed. It's not scrunched up as we've been guilty of doing in perhaps earlier editions of the book. Much more space there to make it less daunting. Also, you'll see the one in the middle is participle adjectives and adverbs. That's in Unit 4. And when you get to Unit 10, there's a text there, which is actually in earlier editions, now also in the 4th. And there again, some incorporating work on word formation. I've noticed in the text we've got a lot of participle adjectives and adverbs. So there's an exercise exploiting those ones from the text. What students do, they put the word in bold in the correct form and then check their answers in the text to show that to show them where the answers are and to relate what they're doing in their reading to what's tested in the exam there. So we're revising, building confidence in that way. And I've said there the word incorporating, paraphrasing, incorporating word formation. Yeah, we've got a systematic approach in the book, but you can do even more in your classes by doing even more word formation and taking a leaf out of that exercise that I showed you there, exploiting the text. I've done it for you there in the course book. But for example, this text here is about a person taking a gap year. Rosie Casterton, the daughter of a friend of mine from university, and she took a gap year between school and going to university. Took a year out and travelled to all those exciting places which students have to decide where they are, read the text and find out where they are. But the point here is incorporating work. Now, I could incorporate work on paraphrasing. I can also incorporate work on word formation. I'm going to have a little rest. You have a little, I'm not going away, don't worry. I'm going to have a little drink here of water. I'd like to read that first paragraph and just look for words which you think might be tested or could be tested in a word formation exercise. Have a look. Right, I never know how long to leave for this, so I'm going to come in now. Words that you picked out there. Again, if I was with you, I'd be asking you to tell me all the words that you've come out with. These are the ones that I thought might be tested or might be useful to focus on in some incorporated work. Ashamed, respectable, admissions. And then the last three, interestingly, it wasn't planned this way, but three of them with the suffix meant to create the noun, requirements, achievements, disappointment. Yeah. Those are the words I'm going to go for. You may have a couple of others you want to go for, but those are the kind of words that they might come across in the word formation. So again, a bit of incorporated work on word formation. I type it out again like this. It takes time, I'm aware of that. But it's very useful work. Once you've done it, it's there forever, and you can get them to fill in the gaps with the correct form of the word after you've dealt with the reading, deal with the discussion topics, deal with the questions, and then come back to this either in the next lesson or at the end of the lesson and ask them to complete the exercise there. Okay. Not the whole text, obviously not, and not all texts are suitable for this. You have to kind of sift through the reading texts and listening scripts to find ones that have a decent number. I think 6 is a good number. If it was 8, it would be fantastic, but as with the exam. But it's not, and it's a good little bit of practice of word formation, building up the confidence, just keeping it going, not just relying on the exercises that you find in the course book, but creating your own as and when you see the opportunity to do so. You can do it with all sorts of text. Here's another text. I'm not going to ask you to read this one, but this is a model writing for an article. So it's an example of an article. But looking through this text, I noticed that there were some decent words there that I could focus on. Runner, addiction, attraction, simply confident. All of those words there could appear in a word formation exercise. So let's focus on them. Let's create a little exercise out of that as we're going along. Okay, word formation, a little bit more. Just to tell you that in the new edition of Ready for B2 First, we now have a word formation list. This is an extract from it. There are 9 pages altogether. It's not exhaustive, it's not everything, but it's a lot of the words that I've put this list together over the years. 20 years now since the first edition of Ready for First came out. 20 years. This is our 20th anniversary. And over the years, I've gradually put this list together. We didn't manage to get into the 3rd edition, but it's in the 4th. It's available in the workbook. It's also available in the digital components for the online components for the course. So you can have access to that if you use Ready for B2 First. Students I'm expecting students to learn it, but it is good as a kind of confidence builder to see the extent of the number of words, for example, the type of words that are used that have the suffix ment, for example, or I can see there, what can I see on the right? It's very small writing for me. Nouns ending in AL, proposal, denial, that kind of thing there. Okay, 9 pages, and it's in the workbook or online. Also, if you use Quizlet, probably some of you do, Quizlet, very useful for revision. I've updated this. I put in all the word formation, the words used in the word formation, the systematic approach, all those ones which appear in the exercises in the different units. In all 12 units, actually, there are now 12 units, not 14. We've reduced the number of units, but made sure all the content goes in. And I've put those into Quizlet. If you go to Quizlet and put in Roy Norris, all one word in lowercase, you'll find these there, Ready for B2 First 4th edition word formation. If you're not sure what that is, in each of those 6 different ones that you see there are flashcards which you can send to students to their mobile phones, and they can use them on their mobiles. And it's a flashcard, you say popular, right, what's the noun form from popular? Popularity, check that, there it is. I click on it and it tells me that. And then I can do generous, what's the noun from that? I touch it, click on it, and I get generosity. So it's a way of constant revision, of building confidence, that's the name of the game. And there is actually an app which goes with the course now. We have an app for students out for this course, but this is a supplementary to that. If you use Quizlet, or students use Quizlet, then the material is there, not only the word formation, but also the transformation exercises in each of the 12 units. They're also on Quizlet. Have a look around, it will say 4th edition. Here's an exercise which is in the handout. I haven't mentioned the handout recently. There was that work on distraction. And yeah, this exercise is there. This is just the first 5 of that exercise. Of course, in word formation, if you spell the word incorrectly, you get no mark at all. It's either 1 or nothing, and it has to be spelled correctly. So this word is, this exercise, which has 20. There are 20 like this. They have words which are similar. Only one of them, is spelt incorrectly. So in the first one, competitive was spelled incorrectly. In the second one, I'll pause to let you look, foggy. In the third one, responsible. That's a very common one in Spain. I think it is in Italy as well, if I'm right, if I'm not wrong there. Responsable in Spanish, and they often put responsible A-B-L-E, and it's often tested. Next one, this is more tricky for students. It's tricky for native speakers as well. If you show it to native speakers, many of them will not get this one. It's influential, T-I-A-L. Yeah, there'll be native speakers tuning in here. Did you get that one? Right, and the last one here of this 5, disastrous. Notice the disastrous, generous. disaster becomes disastrous. And there are more like this on the handout, which you can get later. Important exercise to do it perhaps at the beginning of the course, do it at the end of certainly towards the end of the course before they do their exam. Do it in the middle of the course, do it whenever you want, whenever you think's best. Writing, I've got 5 minutes to go before I have to open this to questions. Right, writing, what can I say about writing? Well, writing in Ready for B2 first, we've got the Ready for Writing section at the end, which has the same format for each of the writing types. We have a question at the top, then we have a model answer with notes about important points to include, and then we have another question which is similar to the first one but different, so they can use the information or the kind of techniques there to write their answer to the next one. There's essay, there's article, and there's email and letter. This kind of consistent format of question, model, answer, question, helping to create confidence, to build confidence. If you focus on those model answers, a big battle with Spanish students is often to get them to write in paragraphs. Work tends to come back as one paragraph. So to show them, to point out the fact that in each of those there is a paragraph structure, and often 4, sometimes 5 paragraphs is a good number of paragraphs to include. So when I was piloting material for this in school near to where I live in Madrid, I would put this, every time we did a writing, I would put this on the board first. Whatever the writing type, there's always some kind of introduction. There's a first point, second point, third point, and a closing comment. Sometimes, depending on the writing type, you can put the first point and the second point together, or the second and the third point together, and even all 3 points together if you want, but at least have some kind of paragraph structure. So I put that there before I sent them away to do any writing. Of course, there was always one who came back with 1 paragraph, but anyway, most people the message got through to. And also I give them this, valore, which is quite nice because it's an Italian word. It also can be a Spanish word, a subjunctive for valorar, to value. And valore is the ingredients that they need to include. And they go away, they learn this, and they know what they have to include in their writing. V is for variety, a range of vocabulary and structures. A is for answer. Make sure you answer the question. That should be the first point, but underlining key points in the question to make sure you answer the question. Linking, part of organization, not only linkers. Cohesion I'll come on to in a minute. I haven't got much time left, so I will talk about cohesive devices. Organization is planning and logical paragraphs, but for the Cambridge criteria, linking and organization, cohesion go together. Organization and cohesion are really one and the same category, but dealing with different areas. R for register, is it formal, informal, or neutral? And E, after you've written your answer, check for errors. Check your grammar, check your spelling, check that you haven't repeated words too much. Okay, this is in the handout. If you're busy scribbling this down, don't worry, it's in the handout that will be posted on the website. I've got it there for you. I mentioned cohesion. I think I'm going to have to make this the last point. I haven't got time to go on to speaking, but never mind. Cohesion, I think, is very important. Cohesion is important for writing. It's also tested in the use of English. And it's also important for the gap text in the reading, where cohesive devices are used can be used to help students put the paragraph or the sentence back into the correct part of the text. And it's important to know, for students to know, that it's not only linkers. Cohesive devices is not just the traditional kind of linking. Linkers like conjunctions, linkers like discourse markers. Now, they know that's cohesive devices, but there are other cohesive devices which they can think about. And this is in the handout to make them aware of these different areas. Demonstrative adjectives like this, that, these, and those, these people, those people, that book, this tree, and so on. Reference pronouns, she, him, this, one. Possessive adjectives, adverbs of place and time, here, there, then, and ellipsis. I enjoyed the first series. Look at this sentence, it's lovely. I enjoyed the first series, but I did not enjoy this one. I did not enjoy it. Did enjoy is taken out, and you're just left with not. it's elided. Part of the sentence is taken out, and you just give them this. Then you have this, which is a demonstrative adjective, and then you have one, which is a reference pronoun. So, but not this one. May seem easy to us, but that is just gold for a student who can write something like that. So there we are. There's an example of where cohesion is used in gap text. What I've done there is put in the sentences words, demonstratives in bold to draw attention to those, to help them put them into the correct space. And finally, and I am going to stop now, this is an exercise which is not in the course book, often because this kind of work on cohesion is left for advanced books, but it is important in B2 first. So on the handout, what students have to do is choose the correct word from the box to replace the words in bold. So you've got there, many people prefer working from home. However, this is not always possible. Are you the kind of person that doesn't know how to play a musical instrument or wishes they did? Yeah. And the last one, you should go and see the show. If not, you'll regret it. So there are 8 sentences. It's on the handout. There are 12 words in the box. So there's a bit of distraction there as well to make it a little bit more challenging. But this kind of work is very, very important for students writing. So it's not just those typical exercises on linkers. I'm just going to shift forward there. I nearly got to the end, not bad. There it is. There's a new book celebrating its 20th anniversary, ready for B2 first. I'm going to come back to ask Romina to come in. There we are.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you very much. Okay, super. So thank you very much for this. It was extremely, extremely interesting. I'm sure everyone thinks the same. And I've actually seen a lot of questions popping up. Some of them are related to actually the new book, so the new version. And for those guys, I suggest contacting either your agente di zona or myself. You can probably see my email address here. So you can contact me anytime, and I will give you all the information that you need for the book, the components, the cost, etc., etc. There was another question, other couple of questions related to the handout. The handout will be sent now right after the presentation tonight in the email, so you will receive it straight away, and then you'll get the opportunity to see the video and to get the slide on the website and YouTube from tomorrow. Now, there are a couple of questions very, very quickly for you, Roy. One is about time management, which is always something very, very difficult for both students and teachers. And so one teacher asked, how can confidence be built without neglecting time management? Because this is what students hear the most usually. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Do you mean time management, how to manage your time in the exam?
In the exam, exactly, during the exam.
Yeah, I mean, I speaking from very, very immediate experiences. My daughter, my wife's Spanish, and my children are bilingual, fortunately. But they take the Cambridge exams. One of my daughters last Saturday did the Cambridge Advanced exam, which is similar in format, of course. And I agree, time management is an important part of it. And the only way to deal with that is practice, doing practice exams. I mean, my daughter has no problems with the language, and she doesn't have a problem with time management, but you have to make sure of that. So yes, I mean, I can understand the concerns, but for me, the only way of dealing with that is to actually do practice tests and say, look, okay, reading and use of English. Now there's certainly an advanced and of course B2 first as well, is kind of how much time do you need to give to the use of English part, how much time to the reading. So they need to practice, they need to work, you need to help them work that out for themselves. You create the platform by giving them practice in the classroom, or if they're dedicated to practice at home, but timing themselves. That's my only answer there, I'm afraid. There's no kind of
And there's actually another question which is quite related to it. So do you think that it's better to addressed to single tasks when wanting, let's say, to build a confidence, or just to do the mock test together? So all the tasks together, just to have a look at maybe the time that is spent on each task.
In terms of time management, do you think, or
in terms of time management? Yes.
I think I would look at for example, if we're talking about reading and use of English, I would look at the use of English as a whole and say 20 minutes, not 4 minutes for this or 5 minutes for that, because sometimes there's a question that can catch you out. I think, again, from my daughter's experience, it's very, very live in my head here. Is
very personal.
In the open close, there was a one that she just couldn't get. She couldn't get, and she realized she was spending too much time, so she moved on and came back to it later. But she didn't have this kind of 3 minutes for that, 4 minutes for that. She kind of knew she had to move on. And I would globally, I think it makes more sense to deal with it globally. Perhaps when you come to, well, perhaps the person's question is relevant for the readings. Then maybe then you say, well, then I've got X amount of time left to do my reading, so I'm going to give 15 minutes to each one, yeah, and no more. Or if I think I'm getting stuck, move on and come back. But yeah, I think in thinking global terms. When it comes to the writing, of course, you've got 2 writing tasks to write in a certain amount of time. It's very easy, down the middle, 50%, and that's it. Right? That's my advice to that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Roy, then, and thank you everyone for being here today. I just wanted to add one little thing about next event, which is going to be on the 7th of April, with Ollie Wood talking about mediation and how to use traditional approaches to develop contemporary skills. So I hope to see you there, everyone. And thank you again to everyone here, both Roy, Mondadori Education, and you guys.
Okay, bye everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a nice day.